If you're thinking about doing a GDEMU modification to a Sega Dreamcast, I wanted to just share some tips with you that will be helpful as you decide what you want and don't want to spend time and money on as you go forward with this process. Then I'm going to go over some helpful things that I think are good to do while you're in the process of doing this anyways. So one of the first things to consider is this even something that you really need to do or want to do? And I think this is a really good mod for somebody who might have a childhood Sega Dreamcast that they want to save, but the GD-ROM has maybe failed or is just not working right anymore. Maybe you've adjusted it and cleaned it as many times as you can and it just is on its last leg. Well, you can give that Sega Dreamcast a second life by installing a GDEMU board in it. And it's actually a really easy modification to do if you're relatively familiar with how to open consoles. And the stuff from the 90s and early 2000s is pretty simple to work on. There's not a lot of, crazy ribbon cables that require tweezers or anything like that. Most people can carry this out with really no problem at all. Now, when you open the Dreamcast, the top is going to come off, and inside there's a spot right here. The GDEMU is literally going to plug right in where the GD-ROM sat. And I'm telling you, this really is one of the easiest modifications that you can do on pretty much any console that gives this much benefit. The GD-ROM pretty much just pulls straight up and out of its pin connector, and then you can move forward from there. Now, there's all kinds of instructionals on how to go about doing it and the technical aspect of doing the install. I'm not going to go over that because a lot of people have already done it. I just wanted to share some of the tips and things to consider when you're going to be doing this. So right up front, before you get started and deciding whether or not this is something you can do and whether or not something you should do, you absolutely need to make sure that you have a good set of electronic screwdrivers. You can get them for maybe 20 bucks, and I'll post a link to one of the ones that I use that has all the different bits that I've used to open Nintendo stuff, Sega, Sony, all sorts of things. Now, if you're trying to determine where you should buy the GDEMU itself, I've got a couple tips for you and a couple warnings. So there are some vendors online that you can buy one from through AliExpress. The only downside with buying one from AliExpress, especially if you're here in the United States like I am, you're going to run into really long wait times, especially right now. I feel like all my stuff that I ever have to import sits in customs for weeks. And so if you're wanting it quickly, ordering it from AliExpress is probably not the way to go. And the other issue that you may run into is it's not uncommon for electronics to just be defective. It happens. This is actually the first GDEMU that I bought. I purchased it earlier this year. It showed up, I installed it, and it worked. But anytime I would turn it on, I would just get real inconsistent results. It would boot up sometimes, and other times it wouldn't boot up at all. And so I went back, rechecked all my work. Everything seemed to be fine. I checked my ribbon cable. I checked all the connections. I cleaned all the connections, and I was pretty sure that I had everything correct. And so just out of curiosity, I reached out to the seller. I said, hey, can you help me troubleshoot this? I think I've got this right. And I got no help at all, zero help whatsoever, which is understandable. These are probably Chinese vendors, and it just is what it is. But basically, they just gave me all these weird instructions that didn't really apply at all. They were like, oh, check your power cable. Dude, it has power. It has power. It's just going to the main screen. It's not booting the GDEMU. It's just not working. So finally, just to test it, because I've got a couple other Sega Dreamcasts anyways, and so I figured, well, I'll just buy another GDEMU from a different vendor that's here in the States, and I'll just test that and see if that works. So I bought the identical GDEMU board, the same version. This is GDEMU 5.20.5, same exact thing. Put it in, loaded my card, no problems at all, fired right up and worked perfectly consistently without a single problem. I was like, hey, this thing doesn't work. Like, I tested it with a different one and it doesn't work at all. Can you guys send me another one? And they wanted me to send this back on my own dime and it just made me kind of irritated. And so eventually I reached out to AliExpress. I was like, look, this is crazy. And then with AliExpress, I really didn't get a lot of help either. It just kind of irritated me a little bit. And I ended up, they gave me the option to just get a refund without having to ship it back. And it was like $7. But I had paid like 50 bucks for the whole kit. Now the kit did come with the molded shroud, and I really, wanted to keep that anyways. So I just kind of figured, whatever, it is what it is. I just overpaid for the shroud, and it is what it is. So that's just something you're going to want to keep in mind. If you're going to buy something from a foreign supplier, you just have to understand that you are taking a risk, and that the delay in you actually getting it, if you're here in the States, is probably going to be substantial. I think recently I ordered something and it took it a month and a half to show up. So if you don't mind waiting and you don't mind the risk, go ahead and you can import one. You might save 20, 30 bucks, something like that, but it's totally up to you. The one that I bought to replace this, I did buy from a US-based seller. I'll go ahead and link that in the description for you so that you can decide where you want to get it from. Now, there's a couple other things that I would recommend doing if you're going to do a GDEMU. And the first one is this Dream PSU power supply. This is super easy to install, didn't cost me a lot of money, and it also came with a 3D printed little bracket in the back for the new power supply. And I like this because the GD-ROM, apparently it draws more power, and when you put the GDEMU in there, it can cause the original power controller, or whatever you want to call it, to generate a lot of heat, because there's way more power going through than what the GDEMU actually needs. And so I have heard of people having heat issues unless they upgrade the power supply. I know there's also a trick you can do by putting some capacitors in here. I didn't really want to do that. I figured I'll just get something that looks a little nicer and gives me a modern plug in the back. So that's what I did. And then the other thing, if you're going to be in here anyways, you're going to want to go in and replace the clock battery. I went ahead and just wired in a 2032 battery, like little coin holder here, so that if I ever needed to replace the battery again, there wouldn't be any soldering involved. I can just open it up, swap the battery out, and it's good. So that's one thing that you'll want to consider. And then I haven't done this yet, but I know a lot of people do the Noctua fan upgrade. If you do that, you do have to get a bracket, and it's a larger, really nice fan. It's silent. It's going to move a little bit more air, and it doesn't make all the noise that the Sega Dreamcast stock one makes. That one's totally up to you. Like I said, I haven't done it, but I probably will in the future. And then one other note, when you buy your GDEMU, I would absolutely get one that comes with the molded little holder here. This is absolutely worth it. You've got your button here. This button basically helps you boot. Like if you're playing a 2-disc game, you push that and it brings you into the next disc. And then it's also got a really nice spot here to put your SD card. And you can put a second SD card in this slot. The only thing about the second SD card slot is that it sticks up and actually contacts the lid when you shut the lid all the way. It's kind of a useless feature in my opinion, but it's there. Nevertheless, you absolutely want to get the one with the cover. I just think it really rounds everything off. And these are not 3D printed. They're actually, I don't know if they're injection molded or what, but it looks like a factory part. I can't stress that enough. It looks so good. And then another thing that I might recommend if you're going to be doing the GDEMU in your Dreamcast is I would actually use a program called OpenMenu. I found OpenMenu and I like it a lot better than GDEMU or whatever it's called. OpenMenu works really well. I like it. It's customizable. And I felt like it was a lot easier to go in and organize all my files when I was prepping everything, getting it ready for my SD card. And then I would also recommend, when you're purchasing an SD card, get a decent SD card. Don't cheap out and get some, $10 piece of junk. I'm using SanDisk products. PNY makes good stuff. Gigastone makes some decent SD cards. But definitely I would buy your own SD card, and I would make sure that it's good quality. Now, one of the other things that you might consider it's right now it's 2026 and everybody, we're used to playing with Bluetooth controllers. It's kind of tough to play on a wired controller after getting used to not doing that. And so you might want to do a Bluetooth controller receiver mod on this. There's a couple options out there, I think. I didn't do that, but you definitely can. I currently own the Striker DC, and this is a product from Retro Fighters. I really like it. It's a Bluetooth controller that uses a dongle. Mine is having some connection issues, and I reached out to Retro Fighters. I talked to the owner, and he said that they actually found an issue with the receivers and that they corrected it, and they're going to send me a new receiver. So that is actually pretty cool. But this, in my opinion, unless you have controllers that you really are dead set on using, this is a really good option, in my opinion. The ergonomics feel modern, triggers feel good, the buttons feel great, and it looks like a Dreamcast controller. So those are just some of the basic tips that I've kind of found after having done the process. And if I go through and do it again to one of my other Dreamcast units, these are just some things that I'm going to consider and that I'll probably do when I jump over and do another one. I hope that's helpful for you. Drop in the comments. I want to know your favorite Dreamcast games and share a memory about the Sega Dreamcast. I've got so many memories playing these games with my friends when I was a kid, and I just am super happy that we're able to still bring them into 2026 and use them.